Learned something. I learned a lot working with you, but this one kind of took me back. Did you know that the cops don't have to find any drugs on you for you to be convicted and imprisoned for a drug crime?
Hey, what are you talking about?
This call is from a federal prison. You will not be charged for this call.
We can say pretty confidently that at any point in time, there are over 40,000 people incarcerated for cannabis in this country.
Seattle Police with search warrant! Open the door!
I mean, we have clients who are serving life without the possibility of parole for selling $20 worth of weed.
That's crazy.
This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. You may begin speaking now.
The Gulf Task Force came to my house and raided my house. And told me I was being charged with conspiracy to distribute marijuana.
Seattle Police Department with a search warrant.
And they didn't find any guns, they didn't find any drugs, they didn't find any money. But they still arrested me, and they told me that I was being charged for conspiracy to distribute 2,200 pounds of marijuana with a maximum sentence of life.
And this is solely based off somebody else, just what they saying.
Yeah, and they can do that without any drugs on the table. They
without
can do that.
any drugs,
Right.
of course, yes, they can do that. And I'm a prime example of that.
Hey, this is Clayton English,
This is Greg Glod.
and this is the War on Drugs. Greg, what's going on?
Hello, this is Jeff Eichen from Weeds Day on Roku and on POD TV, and I'm recording this for Edwin Rubis. Let's get him home. Let's bring him home. He's been on our show many times, and thank you to the beautiful people on the War on Drugs podcast featuring Last Prisoner Project.
Just waiting on this call from Edwin Rubis.
Yeah.
Get to hear his story, which is one of the casualties of the drug war.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Edwin Rubis is right now in federal prison for allegedly trafficking marijuana from the border to Houston on conspiracy. No drugs were ever found at his home. It was just people that were arrested said that he had been transporting drugs from... Okay.
This call is from a federal prison. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from...
Edwin Rubis.
This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. To accept this call, press 5. To block this call and all future calls, press 7. To reject this call, hang up now. You may begin speaking now.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Edwin.
How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay despite the circumstances.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. This is Clayton English and Greg Glod, and, thank you for calling into the War on Drugs podcast.
Yes, no problem. Yes, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be able to speak on your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're short on time too, so we'll get into it. So, why don't we just start from kind of the beginning, how this all occurred and transpired, going a little beforehand and what the things that you were going through. So just kind of tell your story and then we can get into everything else.
Okay, well, basically, the Gulf Task Force came to my house and raided my house and told me I was being charged with conspiracy to distribute marijuana.
And and they found nothing at your house, right?
Yeah,
Yes. When they came to my house, and basically it was early in the morning, and they came and me on the floor, ransacked the house from top to bottom. My son was traumatized by the whole event, of course. My pregnant wife was confused and just sat there. I didn't know what was going on. And I didn't know what was going on at first until they explained to me what the reason why, that's what was happening. And they didn't find any guns, they didn't find any drugs, they didn't find any money. But they still arrested me and they still took me down to the federal building, downtown Houston. And they told me the charges and they took me to court and I was arraigned. And then they told me that I was being charged for conspiracy to distribute 2,200 pounds of marijuana with a maximum sentence of life.
Jeez.
And I couldn't really believe, what I was being charged with. And I said, I was shocked. And I asked, I said, well, where does this derive from, And basically they told me that people...
This call is from a federal prison.
The Drug Enforcement Agency, and that they were cooperating with the government they were cooperating with the government and had given them my name and were saying that I was involved with them, for selling marijuana.
And this is solely based off somebody else, just what they say.
Yeah, and basically the conspiracy laws work that way. I had to learn that the hard way, of course, and after so many years of being in prison, I've come to understand that if there's an agreement between two people that basically say or agree that someone else has been a participant in an illegal venture or illegal transaction of drugs, then that person can be arrested, basically with the same charges that those two are agreeing that you had something to do with.
Yeah, and they can do that without any drugs on the table. They
without
can do that.
any drugs, of course, yes, they can do that. And I'm a prime example of that. And at that time, I didn't really know anyone. I had lost contact with the people that I had been selling drugs with. And so it was very difficult for me to say, okay, well, this Joe Blow here, he's selling drugs, or, this other guy, John, he's also saying, I couldn't say that. I mean, there was no way that I could have given any type of information, even if I wanted to. So what ended up happening is, in my ignorance, I decided to go to trial. And that was the worst decision that I could have made in my life. I didn't know what the ramifications were going to be. My attorney basically didn't present any type of witnesses on the witness stand. He told me not to testify. There wasn't any evidence shown, to try to demonstrate my innocence.
Yeah, no physical evidence. Nothing was found. I mean,
nothing was found. No, of course not. If anything would have been found, then I guess, again, you have to understand that I was ignorant to the law. I was 29 years old, and I mean, there was no way I could. I mean, I don't know how to basically believe that they could have find me guilty, or that they could have said, okay, well, we're going to convict you based on word of mouth. And I didn't understand that. But again, I had to learn that the hard way, and I have learned that the hard way.
But most people think in the judicial system, if they don't have any evidence, what are they going to hold against me? And, you were just operating under the assumption that I think most people have, and, most Americans have. And so really your only way out of the situation was for you to give somebody else up and continue this cycle. Wow.
Exactly, and I couldn't. I mean, even if I wanted to. I mean, again, the people, the leaders of the conspiracy, the leaders in my case, I wasn't a leader. The leaders in my case basically had been arrested, and among others, and they...
This call is from a federal prison.
Cooperating in trying, to try to get their sentence reduced. So here I come, I'm arrested. I'm not a leader of the conspiracy or the case. And, and I'm trying to prove my innocence. So the government uses all the testimony from them to basically label me as the guy that was in charge when I wasn't. And they know that. And even in my case, if you read the transcripts of my situation, on my case and my trial, you're going to basically easily come to understand that that's the case, that I wasn't a leader. And it was kind of ironic now is that the leaders of the organization, or the leaders of my case, have been released. Every single one of them.
The actual people that were doing this whole thing, making the connections, making the deals, doing whatever else, intimidating you, are able to walk free because they have, higher paid attorneys. They understand what's going on, and they had information to flip on people that were actually less culpable in this whole thing. I mean,
yes, because of the reason that I couldn't cooperate with them, and I couldn't flip, I couldn't flip and snitch on other people. And that's one of the main reasons why, I received such a harsh sentence. I proceeded to trial, and, they gave me every single type of enhancements that they could have gave me. They gave me obstruction of justice. They gave me leadership role. They gave me a gun that didn't exist because I was never found with any type of weapons. But people testified, and they said, "Oh yes, he had a gun sometimes." And they'll use all of that information to basically enhance your sentence.
Yeah, it's incredible.
By now I have already done, over 24 years and 2 months to the day. I have been in prison, serving this nonviolent cannabis, for this nonviolent cannabis offense.
Wow.
And I still have 10 years left to go.
Yeah.
But it doesn't defeat me, because for the simple fact is, yes, when I first came into prison, I was extremely depressed, and I was distraught, and still struggling with drug addiction. And, the demons that I was dealing out in the streets, I was still dealing with them in prison. And to the point that it became very unbearable. There was a time, the first year and a half, 2 years was extremely difficult, that I even tried to commit suicide. I tried to take my own life. I couldn't face the fact that I was looking, to my release date that was going to be 35 years later. I mean, my mother was suffering, and my children, my ex-wife, were left out on the streets. I mean, it was horrible. I mean, and there was nothing I could do about it. I mean, all I could do was call, them on the phone for 15 minutes, just as I'm doing that, right now, and talk to them, and didn't really do much for them.
Yeah, and this all costs significant money. I work in criminal justice policy, so I'm aware, of, commissary items. It's the phone calls, it's the video chats, it's emails. They call them stamps, where you have to buy stamps just to send an email. If you want to send an attachment to an email, that's another stamp. And so, we read about how you were trying to, you're trying to better yourself in there, and you're trying to go through college courses and all these different things, but you had to essentially choose between, eating sometimes, or sending an email, or getting tuition books and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about some of those kind of struggles that you've had with that whole area of the prison system?
And I'm sorry, I'm just about to break down crying, because, it's so hard, the times that I have found myself going through that, and I had to make a choice, to either, purchase some things, or purchase my college books. But again, I haven't given up. I haven't allowed my circumstances to defeat me. I have tried, through my faith and my perseverance, to try to make something of myself, despite being behind prison walls.
Edwin, we got people listening here. What is something we can do to help? Or what is something that people listening at home can do to help in any capacity?
The thing that I request for people is to sponsor me. What I request is for people to raise a voice, to basically to say enough is enough. Why are you keeping this man behind prison bars when this man has been truly rehabilitated? This man has accomplished more than anyone could accomplish under those dire conditions.
Yes.
That's what I want people to basically know.
This call is from a federal prison.
I mean, it's unfair. I mean, it's just, people don't really have a clear picture of what a prisoner actually goes through behind the fence. And, we don't, of course, we have different programs that show up in the violent, notion or angle of what takes place behind prison walls. That, they never really demonstrate the emotional turmoil, the anguish, and the mental anguish that a prisoner goes through when he's being deprived of having that affection of hugging their loved ones,
right,
of having that social connection with the people that he loves. Those are the things that they don't demonstrate, and those are the things that I believe affects a lot of people behind prison walls. You have people in here suffering from PTSD.
Yeah.
You have people here taking medication, and you have people here breaking down sometimes and going to suicide watch. That happened to me when I first came into prison.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wanted to take my own life. I just couldn't fathom the notion that I was going to be in prison for 40 years, and it was just insane.
And that's probably compounded by the fact that you're innocent for most of the things, the gun and the hearsay, and they caught you with no evidence. So,
or you did something that other people are making millions of dollars off of right now. It's an unjust system, to say the least.
Is there any way? Do you want people to contact you or email? Or I don't know how that works.
Any other ways that we can go out, or anything you'd like to say before we go here?
Yes, there is an email address that my brothers administers, and it's called Edwin Rubis at AOL.com.
Okay. Yeah, we'll plug that in our podcast link,
Yes.
and everything else. We'll put that in there, and so people can.
This call is from a federal prison.
Really greatly appreciate you giving me the time to be able to speak with you all.
No, thank you.
It means a lot, And one last thing that I would like to say, if you will allow me to,
Yes, please.
is that the fact that when I communicate with people, when I speak to people over the phone, as I'm speaking to you right now, to me, that is oxygen to my lungs. That is life given to me. because I come to think of it as a way of knowing that there's a world for me out there waiting on me, and that I'm not just here in prison and that this is my life. Because you have to understand the perception of living behind prison walls for almost 25 years and not knowing when you're going to be able to see society again. You know, by the time I get out, I'm going to be 63 years old if I have to do the remaining of my sentence. And by that time, I would have spent 34 years in prison for a nonviolent cannabis offense. And to me, that is harsh. I mean, it's inexplicable. So when I speak to people like you and I speak to other people, you know, from society, it gives me hope. And that is what keeps me going. It gives me faith to know that one day I would be able to speak to you personally out there in the streets.
Well, yeah, when that happens, I'll be there, because I would love to shake your hand and give you a hug for everything you're doing, you know, and hopefully, you know, we can get you home a little bit earlier with all the, you know, support that you're getting out here. So, yeah.
Man. We see what you're doing, love what you're doing, and we're going to do everything we can to get the word out. And
thank you.
Is there anything else you would want to tell the people out there listening? Or
I love each one of you. That's all I want to say. I love each one of you. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with the War on Drugs podcast.